So here we are again to talk about a little bit more in detail of narcissism. And I just want to put a disclaimer at the front today rather than at the end and be really clear that I'm a life coach. I help my clients achieve goals and we move forward from challenges. And whilst I'm discussing the average traits of this condition called narcissism, there's also a medical aspect which I am not discussing. That is not what we're here to talk about. That's a clinical personality disorder. So I want to say, if you know or are living with either yourself or somebody around you and it's affecting your everyday life in a negative way, I do strongly suggest you find a professional counselor or go to your doctor who can help you diagnose and therefore provide guidance and medical support. Because it is a condition and it can be on either end of the spectrum. It can be those who are very depressed and those using it such a negative way that it is impacting heavily those around them. So just be mindful that this is a spectrum, and I'm talking about the middle part, not either end, which is it can be seen as a medical condition, and you should go and see somebody to help support that. It's actually often not ever diagnosed within yourself, and there can be a number of reasons, which again I'm not even going to go into, that can be causing this disorder. And let's just put another myth buster out there. We are all narcissists. Humans by default have an element of self-concern, and that's healthy, that's normal. Or it should be. It's where we fit on that spectrum between 0 and 10. Control is something that, a trait that narcissists do use, where functioning, they actually are aware of what they're doing and they're using it for their own gain, versus those with a medical condition don't necessarily realize or can't control it. So in relationships, I come across this particularly with men. It is quite more common in men, where they wish to control the situations, and particularly their women, their partners, their families, to the point that it's just about themselves. And of course, it's more concerning. It can be financial control, it can be emotional control, it can be isolation from family. For them, some of the traits that you can use to spot this aspect of it is they really dislike last-minute changes. It makes it very difficult for them to control situations when there's last minute adaptations. They like to have and can be quite micromanaging, and it's just to make sure that everything is aligned with what it is they're seeking to get out of the day, the activity, the relationship, and it does drive the decisions and their behaviors. They do sabotage their own friendships. Anybody, the slightest thing can set off, and that's it, they break all ties. They don't want to have people in their lives, particularly those who are capable of standing up to them or challenging them or pointing out behaviors that is causing concern. Will just be cut off and they won't want any part of it, rather than trying to face up to it or have any accountability. And it's not uncommon for them to dislike your friends. And we're not talking about behavioral traits where people just don't get on. We're talking about a consistent pattern. There's always reasons why there's an issue or why you shouldn't spend time with your friends. And that's quite a big indicator when I'm talking to my clients, that isolation, and they lose friendships. So watch out for those kind of manipulations that can occur. And of course, they will then try and discredit you or them to cause wedges between friendships. And this is because you will have a backup system, you will have support, and they don't want you to have that. They don't want anybody pointing out the obvious traits of what they're trying to do. So they segregate you from them. And quite often, friends will have, or family members will have, niggling suspicions and feelings about these individuals. And the problem is usually just enough to kind of like, I don't quite like this person, but okay, you've chosen to be with them. It creates a sense of disjoint in interactions between your friends and your family, because these people aren't confident enough to say, hey, there's something about this person I just don't like, I don't trust. It's not strong enough for them to speak out because it's subtle controlling. We're not talking about physical aggression. We're talking about manipulation of situations, friendships, and engagements. So those family members often will say something after a separation, which is unhelpful sometimes. It's those major incidences where people start to pick apart stories and put the pieces of the puzzle together. So if you have any inklings that something's not quite right with your partner, or you're noticing that some friends frequently are being isolated and not included, maybe you could be brave enough to ask them their real opinion about your life partner or your husband or your wife, and be prepared to hear something that might make you uncomfortable about your choice in love. But sometimes it's better to hear it sooner rather than later, because it does escalate. They do get more control. I grew up with a narcissist, and I know over the years, looking back in it, I saw how much more derogatory he would be around my mom, how much more aggressive he would be, not only with my mom, but the people around. People stopped coming for visits. We weren't invited to events, social activities, and gatherings. And of course, he got more controlling with us as we grew up. And we're not talking about discipline. I was heavily disciplined, and that is what it is. But it was complete control over almost my entire identity, which is why I moved out at 15 years old. And those indicators of like watching from the outside, your family's moving out, not in a growth and wanting to see the world, like escaping. So have a look at those things that are happening and kind of be prepared to kind of see things with maybe different lenses, and ask those people around you, your loved family, friends, what they really think if you've got suspicions, or if you're the one who perhaps is doing these things. Ask for other people's opinions of you, and if it does concern you, reach out. Get some help from however you are on the spectrum, professionals, medical support, counselors, or if it's just some behavioral traits in your relationship. This is what we're here for, is to help you in different ways. I can help you do your communication better. I can help you make decisions. That's my job. That's what I'm put on earth to do. So there's a big difference, and there's a massive variance on the scale. So this discussion is to help you look at it a little differently. And another point of clarity, taking charge, somebody who's assertive and a leader, is not the same as being controlling. All right? So ways you can tell, ideas that you suggest or someone else makes, they're not just, oh, that doesn't work for me. They're actually ridiculed and made wrong and shut down. You are made to feel foolish. Only the narcissist has the right answer. And this can be publicly or as well as privately. They have a way of turning a lie or an indiscretion that you discover about them into a necessity they had to do. So when they're kind of like twisting a situation, you're like, hang on, I came in with this perspective of you changed some situations on me, and then when I addressed it with you, you're kind of making it all about somebody else or me. That's a flag. And they can be deeply critical and hold deep grudges about others, particularly family members, if they're trying to isolate you. And they will convince you why they should not be in your life. And we pay attention to it. My first boyfriend was also a narcissist, and he constantly, the fifth one, spoke to me as if I was being owned. Spoke to me as if I was an object. In fact, I felt like the housekeeper. That's how I was, just somebody he had around for his own benefit and gain. And he wasn't, well, he was aggressive at the end, but for the first few years, there was nothing it was just, oh, I thought that's just his personality. But it escalated and got worse, and then became physical. So watch out for, it's not just, some people can be very assertive and confident, but it's when you put all of the bits together, that's what we're trying to open up this discussion about. Now, having said that, all of that, narcissists exist in all walks of life. So this isn't just, I know I was using context of a personal relationship, but we work with them too. We have to deal with them. They could be a family member that we have to interact with. So look at all of the relationships, look at the behaviors of people around you, and we're the positive role models. We don't invite it, and we certainly don't endorse any of these behaviors in a way that we put up with. If you're struggling, and you're looking for some coaching support, let me know. Reach out privately. Of course, this is a private conversation. Send me a message. Of course, next week will be the other video supporting how you can spot the warning signs, and then what you do, what you can do to exit a relationship, or of course seek some more professional clinical help. Hope all of that helps. We will see you next week. Have amazing weeks, and until then, keep being and loving yourself and those around you. Bye.